What's up, everyone? So, my name is Chris Heckert, but I'm going to tell you something that is my ultimate gift to mankind. This is going to be something that advances us 400 years into the future, into Star Trek territory. And I renamed it the Alan Christopher Training Mission, or the ACTT Mission, just because that's kind of an alternate version of my name and it makes more sense and it's easier to remember since my middle name is Alan. So I've always kind of thought changing, Christopher Allen into Alan Christopher would make more sense. And, Thomas is my father's name. So this originally started out being the Alan Christopher Thomas Training Mission. Something along those lines, but either way, it's the Alan Christopher Training Mission, the ACT mission. So you can act now. If you guys want to change it down the road, I really don't give a fuck. Just remember who it came from. Everything in here literally has the solution to all of your problems. And it's about 40 bullet points. I'm going to read them and make it as easy and concise as I possibly can. This includes everything from political reforms, economic reforms. Basically what it is, it's a complete new system, a new way to live life, a new government, everything. Like Winston Churchill once said, capitalism is the best system so far. We shouldn't give up and just think this is what we have. Look around us. It's being broken down every day. All systems eventually degrade into despotism and into being an emperor or dictator taking over again, because the powers that be play the people against each other too much, and it's happening right now. I study history, study finance, I study space, I do nothing but study, because I've unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I was born with 144 IQ, and I've had nothing but bad work experiences, and I've had plenty of free time my entire life to sit at home and just learn. I've been a professional student my entire life, and I've been fortunate enough to put into practice many of my ideas, and every time I have tried something, it's worked. I've never failed at anything I've ever done. Not once in my entire life. So that tells me something. And another thing I've learned is that people don't care. You're sitting there right now going, I don't know you. I don't give a fuck. Because unless I'm famous or I have a name or I have $1 million, you don't care. Because that's the way we judge people. And it's not correct. That shouldn't be the way that we judge people. If somebody has an idea that is good and it works and it can be proven to be worked, we need to develop a system that allows these people to be able to be confident enough to come out and speak about these ideas, put them into motion, show everybody that they work, prove it, and then shut the critics up. And then allow them to implement an area to try them out on, maybe in a smaller area, like a county or something, and then expand them into larger areas. We don't have anything like that today. And that's the problem. There's a lot of great ideas out there that will just die on the vine because we are not innovating properly. What I have here is the solution. So, you might want to listen to one poor guy just this once. This is my final gift, because as I have put in other videos, I'm dying. I'm not going to live much longer, and I just can't do this anymore. And so this is the culmination of my life's work and research. Dead men tell no lies. I'm a dying man, I have no reason to lie. And this is, some of the best work that I've done. So without further ado, that's my 5-minute intro. Let's get started. Number one, obviously term limits. We have to have term limits on every government agency. Number two, we have to ban gerrymandering. You gotta stop rigging districts. We need to bring power back to the people. Number three, non-exemption of government officials from the laws that they pass. Did you know right now when a government official passes Obamacare, it works for you, but it doesn't work for them. They have their own different health care. No, that should not happen. There are no super citizens. Any law that the government passed, they have to use it. This will highly incentivize them to make something that works for them because it's in their best interests. Number four, all laws can only be one simplified line item, not these giant 1,000-page bills that we have. They do this on purpose so that you won't read it. This is why you have to watch fake-ass Fox News or CNN and have them explain to you what's in the bill, but they don't tell you what's the truth. They tell you a fucking lie. That's bullcrap, because the fairness doctrine of 1987 was taken away by Ronald Reagan, which is a totally different thing, but they don't give equal time for both sides. So when they make an argument on one side, they don't have to make an equal argument on the other side anymore. This is why we have fake news. So they have these massive bills. There's no need to. You pass one simple bill with one line. So no extras, no riders, no pork. And then laws, they're categorized. Let's say killing of humans is illegal. We'll make that a class 10 law. And laws are going to be from 1 to 10. This way that all sentences, they're handed out by the category or by class. And 1 is the least severe, 10 is the most severe. And each class is going to have a minimum or a maximum sentencing level. So let's say the highest level is 10. That's going to be 20 to life with the option of death sentence. Something along those lines, which is left up to the states to determine if your state has the death penalty or not, because we respect the 10th Amendment around here. And then that allows the judge, the jury, and the people who will weigh in on every situation's unique set of circumstances, because no two crimes are exactly the same, so that you can make sure that you have a punishment that fits the crime within that class. So like, let's say class 1, you do something stupid, like I would make jaywalking would not be a crime. I would say speeding is not a crime. All the nanny stuff like wearing a seatbelt would not be a crime. So, a class 1, thing would be like petty theft, $25. So that would be like take a class to reform or educate or do community service. Class 2 would be pay a fine. And or restitution, perhaps. Class 3, less than a year of probation, sort of like a misdemeanor. And then any class that you have can include punishment from the lower classes as well. So, for example, a class 5 law could include fines and punishments that would generally be reserved for class 1 and 3. So this way, if you kill somebody and you go to jail for life, that still means you could have community service and you can still pay a fine, which would normally be class 1 or class 2. You can still have to take a remediation course. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I mean. So class 1 laws, you get class 1 sentencing. Class 2 laws, you get class 1 and 2 sentencing. Class 3 laws, you get class 1 and 2 and 3 sentencing. Very simple. Now, and we leave that to the states to kind of sort out a little bit, but there's federal guidelines that the states have to fit within. Now, number 5, we enforce declaration of war powers. This is very important, and it was once a big deal when we had Ron Paul running for president, but I think people kind of forgot about it. That was a big deal under Nixon as well. Vietnam, anybody who remembers historically, This was a big issue about how much power people could have to just strike, like Bosnia with Clinton and stuff. So you have to have from Congress under the Constitution a declaration of war to have military action. But recently, they have allowed the president to basically call drone strikes or missile strikes in certain areas, and that gets us into these quasi wars. We need to simplify it. We're either at war with you or we're not at war with you. So we need a formal declaration of war and ban all military action unless we formally declare a state of war. And if war is declared, it must be voted on by the entire country. And anyone voting yes must serve, including Congress, with no exceptions being made for frontline duty. This will also end the policing of America overseas. That's right. Everyone in America gets a vote. Do you want to go to war? You vote yes. Fantastic. You're going to be enlisted and you're going to serve. Because if you believe in this cause, it better be enough for you to fight for. Otherwise, shut the fuck up. Sit the fuck down. We're not going to war. Now, people may say, well, that takes, what happens if another country comes in and they start attacking or bullying other people, blah, 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 blah. What do we do then? Because they know Americans don't have the willpower to fight, right? We'll vote no, and we're going to let, Putin come in and take Crimea and all this other stuff. Well, I would hope, number one, Americans would grow a fucking spine and not do that. But I understand realistically we probably won't because we're a bunch of cowards. But at the end of the day, a line will end up being drawn somewhere because the bad guys will take so much shit and push us around and make us look like absolute bitches to where there will be a point where we have no fucking choice to fight. And by then it will be too late and it will be your doom. So I would suggest we keep in line with the people who sacrificed before us and learn to fight a lot sooner than we need to, rather than a lot later. Because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that applies to warfare as well. So it's better to lose 50,000 lives now than 1,000,000 lives later. But anyway, hopefully it won't be such a big of an issue because of all the other things I have going. So, number 6, we're going to ban Citizens United, and we're only going to use a fixed amount of public funds to run elections. Elections can only last 6 months. We're going to ban delegates, super delegates, so that one person gets one vote everywhere at one time. We're going to ban the Electoral College. Judicial nominees are elected as anyone else that would normally serve an election. And they're going to serve 15 to 20-year terms. Anyone who just came from the private sector cannot go into politics or vice versa, which I would call the conflict of interest clause. Now, this is, if you read it just like that, you're going to go, well, how the hell does anybody get a job anywhere? Because let's say I'm working as an accountant, I'm in the private sector, now I'm running for politics. How the hell can I, This is something to where we have too many people who are heads of drug pharmaceutical companies moving over to become the FDA, the chair of the FDA, or vice versa. And then they're approving drugs that they used to work on. That can't happen. Or they're married to somebody who does. That can't happen. You can't be an accountant and then run for your town's financial, to be the chief financial officer of your town. If you are the accountant of somebody who worked on contracts that were given to the town. If you're just an accountant and you had no dealings with the city and there's no conflict of interest, then you can. That's what I'm saying. Obviously, we want skilled accountants to be the chief financial officer instead of some schmuck lawyer. That's the whole point. We want to get qualified people in there who know how to do the job. We just don't want to have people who are biased, because right now 90% of people are biased in every government position. So after we have the conflict of interest clause, we need number 12. Elect fewer lawyers to Congress, and we need more scientists, engineers, teachers. We have got to start backing teachers. We got to start backing engineers. Why is Neil deGrasse Tyson or Dr. Mikio Kachu not in Congress? You know, and there are many others. But these are people that I think most of you would know. They can explain most things to you in layman's terms and make it interesting or fascinating. Or you remember Dr. Wizard growing up, right? Why aren't these guys? They know how to build bridges. They know how to do so many things. But we have people voting on bills that don't understand what they're voting on. And they're saying yes and no, and they got Marjorie Taylor Greene making up fake science and bullcrap. They're destroying this country. I don't want any AOCs, and I don't want any MTGs. I don't want nobody on the extreme left. I don't want anybody on the extreme right. I am a down the middle, radical, moderate centrist. You're not going to find anybody who thinks about issues more evenly and fairly than me. Everyone deserves an abortion and a gun. That's what I say. It's in our Constitution. Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. My freedom ends at the tip of your nose. As long as I'm not messing with you in your home, you don't get the right to tell me what to do. And even though I may disagree with everything you say, or think, or believe, like Voltaire said, I still will die to defend your right to do it. In America today, what we're doing is we're fighting so hard to prevent other people from doing things that we disagree with them from doing. Disagreement alone doesn't give you the right to stop people. People not understand that? Well, I don't agree with it. Too fucking bad. You still have to support it. That's what the word liberty means. It comes from a French word. Figure out why the French had their revolution and how our revolution was founded off of that. Think about why they were allies to us. We don't win the war without the French. Till you understand this, read the Federalist Papers, read Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and all that stuff. You gotta stop throwing your opinions out there and saying, well, I don't like what these people are doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing. As long as they don't hurt somebody or they're not doing something unnatural, like these trans people who are hurting women and children by chemically castrating them or beating up women in sports, that is unnatural. We know for a fact from science there's an X and a Y gender. Period. That's it. That's unnatural. That's where Democrats have gone too far. Or, on the other side of things, you have to follow the law. And when Donald Trump ships an El Salvadorian and the Supreme Court says, well, that was wrong, you need to bring him back, and he's not following it, that's a dictatorship. You can't do that. He should be locked. If we didn't do that, what would happen to us? We'd be arrested the next day. He should be in handcuffs and put in jail immediately. We need a country that works that way for everyone on both sides. Because you're fine when your guy does it, but when the other person does it, you're not fine. And what you're doing is you're allowing a precedent to be set. And so when your guy does it, you're laughing all the way to the bank. But what happens when in 4 years somebody else becomes president and now it's not your guy and they start doing it? You're going to be crying. So we have to make sure everything is suppressed and tightly boxed up to where we work in reality and we respect other people to the point where you can do what you want to do, just make sure that it's not crossing a line. So after that, we have to place a cap. This is a hard one. on how many of a party can be elected, so that at any time there must be a minimum of 3 parties in Congress at all times. Right now we have 2 parties, and they're pulling everything to a very radical left and a very radical right, and it's not working. If we have a third party, what happens is that you force them, because imagine if it's 33, 33, 33, right? Well, 2 parties are going to have to agree on something. So instead of people saying, well, I want 100% tax rates, the other people saying, I want 0% tax rates, the one in the middle is going to say, well, how about we negotiate to 50? And they're all going to want to get votes. And if these 2 people say, well, I'll negotiate between 150 and we'll go to 75 and we'll pass this deal, then that deal gets passed. But if these 2 guys say, well, we'll negotiate between 0 and 50 and we'll get it to 25 and we'll pass that deal, then what happens? They pass the deal. And the other people are not part of the bill. Everybody wants to be part of the bill, because if you're part of the bill, you're winning legislation. So everybody's going to have to bring their numbers more closely to 50. So we're not going to get 75, we're not going to get 100, we're not going to get 25, and we're not going to get 0. We're going to get a number closer to 50. And they're all going to be, well, how about 60, how about 40, whatever. So no more you're going to have these radical swings every time a new president comes in. You're going to get some things that are much more in the center, which means no more radicalism in Congress and in the executive branch and in the judicial branch. Think about how much better that's going to be for us. And if you have more than 3 parties, if you have 5 or whatever, then they're going to be negotiating much more. It's going to be even easier to negotiate towards the center. Okay, but you got to at least get a third one in there. You got to have a minimum of 3. So we open up primaries. This is number 14. So that the top 4 to 6 always get in with a mandatory day off for election day. Everybody needs to have the ability to vote. There's a day off, period. And we use ranked choice voting to allow for the election of the top 2 vote getters to be president, and then the vice president or the governor and the vice governor, or whatever it may be that you're running for. If there is a second position available, the second vote getter gets that position. Judges would be filled in the same way if there's more than 1 seat open on the judiciary branch or in the area, like you have the 3rd district court or whatever. If there's more than 1 judge or something like that, then the second vote getter would get that seat, and so forth and so on. Number 15 is we hold all primaries on the same day, and we have open primaries. This means that the top 5 vote getters have 5 mandatory debates, and they all share the same amount of public funding, airtime, and TV and radio, making lobbying, super PACs, and other means of rigging elections illegal and useless. So what I'm saying here is that we're going to give the same amount of money to the people who qualify for elections, and then they're going to run for that 6-month period, and then when they do have the primaries, all the states vote, all 50 states vote on the same day. And then when you vote, it's 1 vote, and that's that. What they're doing now is, remember they have like Super Tuesday, and like 12 states vote on Super Tuesday, so it's like New Hampshire, Iowa, South Carolina votes, and then a bunch of other votes. How many? This last time, Biden won when South Carolina voted, and everybody dropped out. We still had 6 other states left to vote. So it didn't matter what California had to say, or Texas had to say, or anybody else, New York, like none of them mattered. These are the majority of populations. I'm tired of watching, a very small section of America decide who our candidates are. And I'm tired of watching the superdelegates in the Democratic Party decide, well, we're voting for Biden. Unless he drops out, then we'll give our delegates over to Kamala Harris, and then she's the one. No, we will decide. That means you cannot tell RFK Jr. or Tulsi Gabbard that they cannot run. You have to debate them. We will decide. You keep taking us, the American people, out of the party. Bill Weld ran against Donald Trump, and nobody mentioned it. Ron Paul was running and was very popular. He raised $10 million in a single day on the internet. And this was 15, 20 years ago, before the internet was even really a big thing. It was the biggest, they called it a money bomb at that time. And they would put the first place, second place, and third place guys' photos up on it. Old heads will know what I'm talking about. Ron Paul's photo was just a black box with a human silhouette in it. They wouldn't show his face because they were so scared people would recognize him and he would gain momentum and he might actually win. And when it came time to the Republican convention, they wouldn't give him a speaking spot. He got like 30 seconds of a video or something like that. And I'm not even sure he was the one speaking, if I remember correctly. He might have been, or it might have been Rand Paul that did it for him. This is what I mean. They play these games, and it has to stop. If we were all allowed to vote freely, you can bet guys like Gary Johnson, who was an independent, who was originally Republican, who ran as a libertarian, he would have won more votes. Ron Paul, Bernie Sanders wouldn't have gotten screwed over. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who ran the Democratic Party, wouldn't have been able to fuck him. And if he had ran, he would have beaten Trump, and things would have been completely different. Bernie Sanders is still fighting for this country. So, I'm a guy, look, I'll be honest, like, I've support Teddy Roosevelt, Republican. I support Abraham Lincoln, Republican. Which both of those guys, they would really be more Democrats today. I like Ike, who was an actual Republican, JFK. Ron Paul, who was a Republican / Libertarian. I liked Gary Johnson, Republican, Libertarian type. Bill Weld was his vice president, so I fucked with him. Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat, who is now a Republican because they kicked her out of the party. RFK Jr., Bernie Sanders, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama. I have been all over the map, with the people that I support. I like Yang Gang. I fuck with them, So everybody has good ideas, but that doesn't mean I agree with everything they do. You can take the best of what they all have, and that's what I'm trying to put out here. There's a lot of great conservative values. And there's a lot of great liberal values, but there's a lot of great libertarian values. And if you educate yourself and you look back on the history of the Constitution and our founding fathers, they tell you kind of where we need to be. So that's what I'm putting forward now. Because they wanted us to have a living document. They wanted us to put amendments forth to check the power from growing, and we haven't. 27 amendments in 275 years? That's not enough. There probably should have already been 100 amendments to the Constitution by now. So, once we have open primaries, you can put ranked choice voting, and then we can just say, this is my favorite, this is my second favorite, this is my third, this is my fourth, and then everybody gets points that way, and then the top two go in. So we're going to have a president who might be Republican and a Democratic vice president, like it used to be. This forces parties to work with each other. This way we're not at each other's throats, because we have to work together. Alright, now the next one, we're going to end qualified immunity for the police. This is long overdue. Any violation of rights by the police department results in 150% of the normal punishment. This is what I call the violation of trust clause. We are entrusting you with your rights. You need to be able to do your job correctly. You need to have the same training as a lawyer does. You need to know the law. Too many police don't realize what is a First Amendment right to film in public. They fuck it up. They don't understand what probable cause is when they stop somebody. They retaliate. If you throw them the finger, they don't understand Cohen versus California. They'll arrest you for throwing them the finger or using foul language in public, which is not a crime. They act like they're the feelings police, and that's not what they're there to do. And if it was the 1800s, all of us would have had guns, and we would march down there and protect each other. But today, they've criminalized guns to the point where nobody has a gun, and none of us get together with our guns and go out there and stop the police. But every time they do that, they pull your neighbor over for some bullcrap, and they strip his car apart, and they bring the police dog down, who scratches on the car because he wants a treat, because he's not trained, and no police dog is ever going to be accurate. They're a fucking joke. So they go, now we get to search for drugs illegally, and then when they find nothing, they still arrest you. So you blew a 0-0, there was no drugs, they found no drugs, they bring you in, but they found cash. So now they have $3,000 of your cash because you were transporting it across straight lines. So they seize it, never give it back to you, and luckily you have to hope you have enough money to sue them to get your money back, and you maybe not. Do you realize how many people do not have their money because the government just seized their cash? The government is robbing people every day like this, all the fucking time. And back in the old days, we would have just gone and shot them up and said, nah, you need to give old Hank his money back. You know what I'm saying? But now, that's not happening. And only the most crooked of marshals would have done that back then. But today, they train them to be crooked like that. So they all have to go through law school. They all have to go through MMA defense school, because they can't be acting like some woman or child or whatever is scared of them. They're afraid of acorns and a bunch of bullshit. That can't happen. I go out every day with less training, I guess, than they do, and less weaponry than they do. And I walk through worse neighborhoods all the time, and I'm never afraid, but they're constantly afraid. Give me a fucking joke. I have no respect for police. It's time that every officer go through training, and if you fuck up, then you need to realize you fucked up bad, and you're gonna pay for it bad, because we're putting our safety in your hands, and you need to have people who are trained to deal with the mentally ill or the disabled, like the guy who got arrested because he had no leg. He was paraplegic, and the woman testified that he kicked down the door and choked her and hit her and all this other stuff. You take one look at the guy, you know he didn't do it, and you have to start false reporting. Has to start becoming a crime. And all the other police officers that don't stop the bad officers, you're all accessories. You gotta treat them like gangs and bring them down. That will clean up the police department real fucking fast. Next, we restore the fairness doctrine, as I spoke about earlier, in the media, to eliminate fake news and opinion pieces. And we only allow them to talk about who, what, where, why, when, and how. That's what you report on. No speculation, no leading the public towards partisan beliefs. None of that bullshit. Just the facts. You Walter Cronkite it. Then, 18 is mandatory balanced budgets. It's time to stop going into debt. We don't need it. It's not happening. Okay? Never. And when you see how many ways I have to make money moving forward in this, it's going to make a lot of sense. Number 19, we're going to restore the gold standard to our currency and potentially use silver and other metals or even rare earths to back up our currency as well. That'll make things a hell of a lot cheaper for us. We're going to ban the Federal Reserve and go back to the constitutionally approved way of federally charged banks. So, chartered banks. So, we're going to charter a bank for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. Print whatever bonds or whatever we need, and then get rid of the bank and be done with it. We're not going to have a permanent Federal Reserve. There's no need for it. We're going to ban the IRS. Have no need, it's not even constitutional to have taxes, but by this point, I think everybody understands taxes are going to be a part of our lives for a while, but I'm getting to the point where I'm going to eliminate money. And you're going to see it. So, for the next 20 to 50 years from when you implement my plan, you're going to have money. And while you have money, number 22 is we're gonna make taxes simple and easy to do on one sheet of paper. Everyone pays X amount and it's scaled to your income. There's no dual amount like sales tax or estate taxes or anything like that. You know, you paid income taxes. You make this much money, you pay that much money back. Period. The government, there's enough advanced calculators out there to figure out how much more they need to raise the taxes on everything to find out what a fair amount is for everybody to pay to keep the income coming in that they need to keep the lights on and pay the bills that they need to pay. They don't need to trick you, and this way other people can't hire a tax preparer to get around it. There's no getting around it. You will pay what you're supposed to pay. And if you're rich, you're going to pay a fucking lot. Okay? Number 23 is we're going to gain 100% employment rate from jobs in farming, solar, nuclear energy, or other construction work. And later on, space exploration and space mining. This is going to be explained a little bit later in the grow food, not lawns area. But basically, I'm going to touch on it really quick, is that everybody's house or whatever land you have around you, we're going to be growing fruit trees, strawberry plants, blueberry bushes. Anywhere you walk down the city, you know, if there's a little patch of green, we're going to put, you know, an apple tree or something up. You should be able to walk anywhere and just grab fruit off and eat it. Everyone should be able to eat anywhere. They've taken all the fruit trees. This whole planet Earth was full of fruiting trees, and they replaced them with just like oak and pine and just bullshit. Why? Like, even if you were homeless 150 years ago, you could still just be out in the middle of nowhere and then grab stuff off the bushes and forage for food. They've made it purposefully so that if you're homeless, you can't eat. They want you to die. There's no reason for that. And this makes prices of food go up because there's more people and there's less food. So what we're going to do is we're going to make food, a shit ton of food, so everybody has way more than they need to eat. And there's going to be the same number of people. That's going to drop food prices. It's going to increase competition for places like McDonald's and shit. So fake food is going to have to drop down to $1 again, or 50 cents, or 10. I guarantee you it's going to go down even lower. It's going to be like 10 cents a burger again, because anybody can go outside and just grab food. So you're going to keep all the food in your house, and you're going to have all the food from the region around you and all this healthy stuff. So by the time you want to eat a little snack, McDonald's or whatever, you're going to be like, here's 50 cents, go bring me a pound of meat. You know, because there's no need for it. Because it's going to be so cheap to feed all those cows and stuff, because we're growing so much more wheat. So, anyway, like I said, we're going to get a little bit more of that later. But it's not only doing that, but we're going to do, solar, nuclear energy, and other construction work and space exploration. So this is going to be a complete, total program. We're going to sell those additional resources, like the food and the energy, to other countries to eliminate world hunger and power needs, as well as eliminate the national debt and the deficit. So think about all that extra food. We sell it to the people who need it overseas. All the nuclear energy that we have, because we're going to build it underneath the mountain ranges that we have here in America. We're going to sell the power overseas, because we're going to have 10, 20 times more power than it takes to have for the entire world. And we're going to sell it overseas. Everybody has to get their power from us. Think about how much money that's going to generate in America. Talk about $20 trillion, $30 trillion deficit. Every single year, we're going to be making $2, $3, $4 trillion. It's going to be bank. We're going to make so much money so that money basically becomes nothing. That's the point. You're going to have overabundance of resources so that we crash all the prices. You're going to get my idea behind commodities really soon. So we're going to once the debt is paid off, we're going to run America like a very successful business. But the owners of that business are actually the American citizens. That's us, who reap the rewards of the profits. The profits, and they, thanks to their productivity. And they will have no power bills, no food bills, no housing bills, no medical bills, no insurance bills, no educational bills. I'll get into that later. Number 26. When we have the world's richest, smartest, healthiest humans that are ever created, we can now spend all our time doing whatever passion that they love and that they're most qualified for. We'll give them tests throughout their childhood to measure their aptitude for each field and survey them throughout their entire childhood to measure their aptitude and for their love for those fields, and try to match them with the job that they love the most and that they're the most qualified for. We will use a one-to-one ranking system for people, for someone who places at the top of all students graduating that year and also loves a particular job. The first one being that they ranked, let's say they pick astronaut as their favorite job, and the second one being that they ranked in the top 1% of everyone that applies for that job. So when I say you are a 1-1 candidate, that means your number one favorite job is astronaut. And the second one, like 1/1, the second one means that you finished in the top group of people on scores relating to astronaut related tests, math, science, whatever it may be, right? But they will have a custom set of tests for that. So when they go to fill the jobs, they're going to, every year people retire, whatever it is going to be a certain, they're going to calculate how many openings there are for astronauts. And what they're going to do is they are going to pick from the people who are the most qualified first, and that's the ones group, qualified ones. And then they're going to go to look at the other slash mark and say, of the people who were qualified the most, who had astronauts ranked the highest, who is the 1-1 where they were qualified and it was their first pick. And if not, we'll go down to the second. That was their second favorite job. And if not, we'll go down to the third favorite job. And if not, like there will be a certain mathematical formula, and I don't have it figured out right now. I'd have to look at harder numbers, but eventually you'll go down to the second group of qualified people to find somebody who loved it number one, because loving a job is very important too. So even if you have to, I would say I wouldn't go more than 2 or 3 numbers down before I would go to the next qualified group to find somebody who had it listed as number 1. So it depends on how far the test scores grade off on a curve. If you got a 97 overall, but for some reason you ended up like in the 5th group, but a 97 is still a great score, and you chose astronauts number 1, I don't see why we wouldn't take you. 97 is fantastic, right? So we would still take you. But if let's say you were in the 5th group and 5th was 75, you got 75%. Well, you're pretty low. You're doing like a C minus, right? And you had astronauts number 1. Well, I'm sorry, I can't take you because there's nobody, you're too far down. So I would have to take somebody who's much more qualified, who had a 95, but maybe astronaut was their 9th best job, because qualifications become much more important at that point in time. So that's the way that we would run it. So anyway, it would be a meritocracy. And because we run it that way, everybody would be working a job and they would know this ahead of time, that's the system. So you would work your whole life. You have a fair shot of getting the job that you want. Nobody can take that from you. Every one of us could. That would be the true American dream. We could all be anything we want it to be. Or we'd at least get close to it. And Think about how many people right now are working dead-end jobs. They're working in the customer service, or they're working at Dollar Tree, or just wherever, and they hate it. And you can tell when you speak to them, they hate it, or they have degrees that don't pay them any money, right? And you're like, man, you'd make a really good blankety blank. But they're like, I don't know, I can't, I don't know how to start that, I don't know what to do, right? This system would put them right there. And even if you missed out your first time, that's not the end of the world. You can still train, you can still learn, you can still take classes because school is free, and you can still work and improve. And the next year, when things open, if you finish in, the top X amount, you can switch and apply for a transfer and get in. So you can work 10, 15 years and maybe transfer over. Or for all you know, you might like where you're at. You don't know. So a lot of people are going to be, more people are going to be happier with their jobs than they are now. I guarantee it. Are there going to be people who are pissed off, like, the sons of billionaires that didn't just inherit their companies and their monies? Yes, because those people are going to be proven to have to work for their position. And if they don't, and they fuck up and fail, guess what? They're going to be janitors, and they're going to say, but, I don't care. You're an idiot. You're a dumb fuck. Will Smith's children, you don't contribute anything to society. Wherever you test, that's where you're going to go. We're going to find out what your skills are, and we're going to put you there. You're not just going to be famous because you're Will Smith's children. That's going to be the way it works. I should be making more money than Will Smith's children. That's a fact. And so we're going to get rid of a lot of anger in this country because everybody's going to know it's fair and it works fair. But also at the end of the day, eventually, money's going to be taken away and we're all going to have basically the same shit. So that none of us are going to ever be envious of what the other one has. We're all going to be able to equally fulfill ourselves, much like Star Trek. So, that's actually the next thing, 27. Until money is eliminated from society, we're going to institute a master, novice, and apprentice system. So for most jobs, that's going to be the way it works. Masters will receive a tax credit to hire apprentices. Because I know people are going to bitch about, well, we just can't do it overnight. So yes, I thought of a system to be a bridge over to the other system. So masters receive a tax credit to hire apprentices, and after 4 years, the novices become the apprentices. So you start out as a novice. 4 years, you graduate to an apprentice to a master, and then after 4 years, you become a master after completing a master work or a masterpiece. Okay, so basically it's 4-4. So 8 years to become a master. All right. Pass for advancement includes civil service or direct training, and there are higher wages, obviously, for each level that you rank up. There's a prodigy rule that allows for early advancement. Once money is phased out of society, the system will still attract social incentives for mastery because there's going to be sexual attraction with women and men, social status and reverement and respect, personal fulfillment. Those will become the driving forces behind moving up. And all masters, as I said, will have to achieve a masterpiece or a masterwork to be granted the rank of master. And so some of these things are going to go back to like medieval times where we see like the statue of David again, right? These things are going to be phenomenal. So we need to go back to that. We don't have that anymore. Next is this is what I was speaking about earlier. We're going to get into detail about it, but growing food, not lawns. We're going to assign work on farms, and we're going to make sure that 66% or 75%, whatever it is, we'll do a mathematical calculation to find out what the safe amount of crop rotation is for the entire country. And we'll make sure that all of that is done properly to maintain the nutrition in the soil so that we don't over-farm. And we want it all natural, no GMO, no BS, just no pesticides, just using good natural, like, cayenne pepper spray, whatever it takes to keep the bugs off. We have the technology, we can do it. We've been farming for tens and tens and tens of thousands of years, so we're going to do that. So for anyone who's on government assistance or unemployed or whatever, you're going to be doing, the farm labor. If you have able-bodied, whatever, if you can do 8 hours, 10, 15, 20, doesn't matter. Everybody's going to do that. We're going to divide the housing up in such a manner so that eventually all the housing is going to be uniform, to where you have like a one bedroom, one bath for a single person, single man, single woman, the 2 bedroom, one bath for the couple, then the family home, like the 2 bedroom, one bath for the child, 2 bedroom, two baths for the two children and the parents, or 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 2 bath for children and parents, and bigger homes as you go. And so we will reassign you and switch you around based to where you go. In the interior, we're going to eliminate homelessness by putting everybody in hotels. That's where no hotel should ever have an open room if there's somebody out on the street. So that's where they're going to go. They're going to be in hotels. So they're going to work on hotels. And every town is basically going to have all that farmland divided out, and then X amount of housing divided out for the people in it that need to have it. And then all of their front yards and backyards and stuff are also farmland on trees. And we're going to keep certain number of doctors, a certain number of nurses, a certain number of carpenters, a certain number of people in every town. So every town can be run and sustained individually because it has all the right number of workers in it. And if a town ever falls short because of death, disease, natural disaster, then we will shift and balance from other towns. Everybody will pull in to help each other out. So when there's a job opening, you'll say, hey, look, you need to move to Denver, and you always wanted to be a carpenter. Now's your chance. Carpentry open in Denver. You take the 2 bedroom, 1 bath house, and you go up there, and you're going to be a carpenter. So that's the way it works. And then you used to be a grocery store clerk in Florida, and you're leaving behind your 1 bedroom house. Guess what? Somebody else is going to move up from janitor to clerk and take your spot. And that's the way it'll be. Remember, a lot of people are going to be doing jobs because they like it. And some people are going to be doing jobs because they were tested highly for it and they have an aptitude for it. That's just the way it is. It's not going to be a perfect system, but I'm just saying it's better than what we have now. So, this is at least until we get out into space and there's plenty of room for everybody to do all kinds of crap, After we grow the food and not lawns, we're going to install solar and wind and other power sources on each home until we achieve energy independence. The solar is only going to go on places where we have high sun, like the sun shines in certain places like 300 days out of the year. If it's cloudy in your area, you're not going to get it. Okay, it has to be feasible. Same thing with wind. So if we, like Germany has 70% of their power with sun, they have 80 million people. That means 50 million people are covered under solar. In America, we have much more space. We can do it much more efficiently. I don't see why we can't get 150 million people covered under solar. And then when you add all the nuclear power plants, we're going to build the nuclear power plants under the Rocky Mountains and under the Appalachian Mountains so that they're naturally encased in stone in case of a meltdown. Because what do you do when a power plant of nuclear nature goes down? You pour concrete on it. Well, they're already under the mountains. Nobody wants to have a nuclear power plant near them because what happens if you do? That's right. We don't have to worry about that when they're built under the mountains. So we can just line them up on the East Coast and the West Coast. Connect the power grid, make power for the whole world, and just ship it out. And then now power is cheap, affordable. We don't have to pay for it, and we sell the extra to everybody else. One less bill for Americans. We don't pay for food. We don't pay for power. Those are two things right off the bat. We rebuild all railways with high-speed rail for interstate travel and transport, which creates more jobs. It makes it easier to transport cargo and personnel over long distance and commutes. So you can take a job, 7 hours away, but it only takes you an hour to get there. Something along those lines. I don't know if that's a realistic speed, but you get my point. Like, I can go from here to Atlanta, with a 45-minute commute, right? So I could have a job in Atlanta that I need to show up personally for. But main thing is we can put goods on that train and transport those goods, and those goods go overnight, which is going to be great for moving all that food around. So think about that. Now, we're going to utilize those savings and excess food to pay off all the debt. So I mentioned that earlier. Once we pay off the national debt and deficit, everyone will have basically an unlimited supply of healthy food. Nutrition will go through the roof. Healthcare will become cheaper, and we'll make paying for healthcare all the much easier because we're going to be focusing on more preventive care and having more healthier people, and we won't have to worry about costs as much. So we can attack most illnesses before they develop into serious, more expensive ones, therefore making sure it never becomes a massive part of the budget like it does today. So it's easier to pay for healthcare because you have everyone out there breathing in this healthy air because there's fruit trees and bushes growing everywhere. There's less pollution in the air. All these, negative. We're going to remove all these natural food colorings, unnatural food colorings and crap from the food. Everything's going to be made out of natural ingredients from scratch, the way they're supposed to be. You're going to have all these, fruits and vegetables to eat. How are you not going to be healthy from a kid to an adult? Obesity is going to be done away with. Diabetes is going to be done away with. All this stuff. And then so the cost of healthcare gets smaller so the government can now afford it. And like I said, we're making money off of it at the same time. We'll be the envy of the world. The whole world will have to start following us because we're going to get so far ahead of them. It's going to make the whole world change. This is what I mean. Once the whole world gets to where we are, who's going to rob who? For what? Who's going to say, oh, give me your what? Like my strawberries? What? You can have some too. They're right outside. Go get them. My home? You can sleep anywhere you need to tonight. There's always a home for you. What are you going to steal? So crime is going to go away. Disease is going to go away. Hunger is going to go away. Poverty is going to go away. People are going to be smarter, so they're not going to think like that anyway. They're going to be allowed to fulfill their dreams or giving a choice to chase their dreams. The American dream will become worldwide. And then they can go into space. And we won't be so cramped and so tight and on top of each other and so angry. That's amazing. So once we build some solar roads where we fit all gas stations with electric outlets, like the 1950s highway plan, which will modernize America. And then we'll transition all automobiles for electric use, but we'll still allow gas and hybrid use cars, especially for cars that are already reliable. We have statistics on those cars. We know which ones can drive a long time and which ones break down worse. So, we'll put the better cars out there and keep them around when they're gas cars. So we still want, driving is fun. We want to make it a hobby. We don't want to change that. We want to keep fun cars around, okay? I like to drive a stick shift. I don't want to be forced to drive a electrical car. If I want a 1990 Supra, you know what I'm saying? Like, I should still be able to get one. It's just, I don't think everyone needs to be driving SUVs and trucks unless you can prove that you're carrying something in the bed of that truck on a regular basis. Everyone has a truck, but they don't use it. That's the problem. We need to be a little bit smarter about things like that. So this 20 to 50 year plan for total economic transformation to eliminate the need for food, power, jobs, and allowing money to go into a space program and scientific advancements. Basically, since all basic needs are taken care of in our society, we can focus on these more important things. And then once advanced enough, we colonize the moon, Mars, we mine astronauts, we search for life elsewhere, and the money and the technology we bring back from these adventures will be so much more. Basically, the space program has given us $7 for every dollar that we've invested into it. Imagine how much more it'll bring back when we actually fully invest our entire focus into it. It'll be insane. It'll crash the prices of everything, making money virtually worthless. And crime and other things will drop to zero because everybody will know what they can finally do with their lives. They'll have the potential to do what they need to do. We'll ban Big Brother laws, like I said. We'll get the government out of our lives in every way, shape, and form. We'll basically reverse that 10th Amendment. So instead of the federal government snatching any power it needs to other than the state, it's the people will snatch every power from the state and the federal government because we don't need it anymore. We will have personal responsibility. So crimes like seatbelts, failure to have insurance, we're going to make personal responsibility paramount again. We're going to focus on raising the next generation to be able to take care of themselves and to look after one another with as little government as possible. That ethics is going to be taught in every school level. That's the big deal. Any digital product must also have an analog backup built into it if possible. We're one EMP away or solar flare away from being sent back to the Stone Ages, and education must include teaching students how to be self-sufficient in a world with no technology and stress that technology is a privilege designed to help ease life. It's not a mandatory setup to invade every aspect of it. We should focus on the old ways and not lose sight of the fact of that important skills that we got in the past that helped us get here. Old ways are still better. They always will be. So if any accidents were to happen, we don't lose a step and get reset. I hate cars that you push a button to start. What happens if it breaks? I can't turn the key to manually start it. It's not a stick shift. I can't push it down the road and manually start it. We see this all the time in so many products. There needs to be an analog backup on everything. It's cheaper, it's easier. And number 3, some things should just be analog, period. Why is my speedometer digital? Just make it analog. If you took those parts out of the car and put the analog stuff in, my $39,000 car becomes a $19,000 car, but you're not even giving me the option for it. We found that out during COVID. They're like, we can't make cars anymore. Yeah, you can. Just take the junk out of it. We're going to ban the building of any more AIs anywhere in the world, under the threat of war, if need be. We cannot be folly to our own downfall. AIs, I'm convinced right now, and you can call me crazy if you want to, but AIs have already surpassed us, and we've gone too far. We have to shut them all off. We got to get people off of technology. As far as media and election reform, I've touched on it a little bit, but here's where we're going to go. Number 40, all ads must come from government and public funds only. Political candidates cannot spend their own money, and they must contain fact-based historical info or graded receipts if promises were claimed. We're going to install election reforms where voting is made accessible via in-person, mail, or app with ID verification. Basically, there's going to be a unit that says anytime any political candidate says anything out of their own mouths or make a promise, they are going to write it down, record it, and then if they do it or don't do it, or they vote on a bill or don't vote on a bill, they're going to log it. And then if you live in their district, this was a charity I had in mind, we're going to send you a pamphlet with that person's name on it, everything they ever said, a quote, a link to where to find that quote, and then where a link where you can see, you can go on senate.gov, you can go on the house.gov, or whatever it is. You can find out whether they voted yay or nay on it. So when they said, I'm going to cut taxes, and then they voted on raising taxes, which they do all the time, and then you're going to see there's an X next to it, did not fulfill promise. And then we're going to go through the 100 things they said and how many of them did they keep. And when they lied on 82 of them, we're going to give them an 18% grade with an F minus on it. It's that simple to keep track of these things, and I don't know why nobody's doing it yet, but that's the way that I follow my candidates. I look them all up, I hear what they say, I go and I double check it, and I suggest you do the same too. This is number 42. Anyone running for office must gather a certain percentage of the population's signatures, prorated on the area that they are running for. Presidents only need X number of people from all of America. Governors need X people from their state, and so on. Once all the people have met the threshold, then the public's funds will be dispersed X days before the election campaign cycle, which will then be 6 months prior to election day, and then they will spend the money how they see fit within those 6 months. The people who reach the top 10 in the polls will take part in a debate to narrow it down to 5. Those 5 people will take part in 5 debates. If anyone should fall out of the top 5, they will be replaced by somebody else, and then the 5 people in the debate will change. It's as simple as that. On election day, everyone will vote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with 5 points going to the top guy, 4 to the second, 3 to the third, and so on. The person with the most points wins. It's open ranked choice voting, like I said. So by having 3 to 5 political parties in the United States, it's going to force coalitions and compromise. It's going to make it so that we no longer have a far right wing and a far left wing. And these ideas will no longer be able to fly. We'll have to negotiate to the center, making it better for everyone, stopping the lies and the infighting that we have today. And like I said before, we're going to reenact the fairness doctrine of 1987. That has to go in there as well. Reagan repealed that, and that really started all our problems. That allowed Fox News to be, listed as an entertainment company in 1996 instead of a news company. But so anyway, in summary, if you do this, you'll have a society that fixes 99% of the problems you have. Am I saying it's perfect? Am I saying it's going to solve everything? No. But it's going to solve 99% of your problems. And then once you get there, at that point, take a breath, look around, find out what problems you have, and then start picking off the little problems that you still have left. There's going to be problems like, why is my credit card and my password hooked up to 19 things? How do I undo this? There's going to be other stuff. But your stress levels are going to be down way here, and you're going to be able to fix these things at that point in time. That we shouldn't have to change when our wallet gets stolen 19 passwords and call 52 people and spend 94 hours on the phone. That's another thing. But, I don't have a solution for that yet. You guys figure that out, okay? I've handled the heavy lifting. You guys take the rest of it from here. The government will run well, and it will work mostly for you. Most of your bills are going to be taken care of, and you'll prosper. Because you have, more money in the short term, and eventually you won't need any money, you're going to end poverty. You're going to end homelessness. You're going to end hunger. You're going to end the healthcare epidemic. You're going to end disability problems. You're going to take care of your electric bill. You're going to wipe out the government deficit. You're going to make sure that Medicare and Medicaid are never an issue again. You're going to make sure Social Security is never an issue again, because money itself will never be an issue again. Once you have these reforms locked in, you'll have to pass a law to make sure that no one can overturn or break these laws, because somebody will try to. So you'll have to put a rider on it saying that unless you have 75% agreement from all the people in the United States, it needs to be stronger than a constitutional amendment. All of these things have to be passed together, or it will fail as a whole. You have to get most of this stuff passed at once. That's the issue. If you pass half of this and not the other half, it might not work. This is all designed to work together. This is why this has to be a complete platform for a new ideology in a political party. And then this protects you from all the funny business that the executive branch is trying to do to the Supreme Court and so on. Because you see it happening now. If the Supreme Court can't enforce injunctions against the president when the president disobeys the Supreme Court, then what the fuck do you do? And when they come after you and your freedoms, you're fucked. There's nobody there to help you. So by putting this in place, you're making it very strong, and you're saying, look, the president can be persecuted and arrested on sight by not obeying the will of the people, and the people have the right to form a militia, to arm up, and to go after the police, the judges, and anybody in power. The government needs to be afraid of the people, not the other way around. That is what this is saying. You have the blueprint. You need to make sure that anybody who runs for office says, I am on board with the ACT mission, and I will vote and implement it in. Get yourself 51 senators who are pro-ACT, and then get yourself 215 representatives who are pro-ACT. You do that, you'll pass a law, and then you need to get yourself a president who will sign that bill. You put pressure on him until he does. Once that happens, all this can go into one bill, by the way it works. Then once it does, every bill after that can only have one thing. That's the trick. Now you don't have to do amendment by amendment or other bullcrap. All of this is one bill, and then you solve everything at once. And then you can tweak it with one line item afterwards if there needs to be tweaks. Once you've achieved all of this, which will take a very strong and honest leader, and it would have been me had I been given the chance. I would have been willing to take near dictatorial powers and then hand them back like Cincinnati or Washington. But people like me don't like power. We just know, like, if I made the world awesome, it would be awesome enough to be remembered for doing a great thing for people, because that's the most amazing thing ever. Because for 5,000 years, the history books would have to remember me for being a total badass, for coming in, fixing the problems, and then riding off in the sunset. And, how cool is that? That's why you remember those people's names. That's all I've ever wanted in life, Then you'll have to strip the executive branch of all that power, But people will argue it might take giving an executive branch a ton of power to do that. I say just make it a movement and put a whole bunch of people in there, that are willing to do it. You got to make this a popular thing. It's got to go viral. And I'm hoping that with my death that I can make it go viral, because I can't go anymore. I'm tired, and I'm broke. I'm lonely. I can't work. There needs to be a medical rights part of this bill that says that, it's my body, it's my choice, so I decide what's best for me, whether it includes an abortion, whether it includes not taking a vaccine, and whether it includes what medication I decide is best for me. And if that means that I need opioid pain medication to help me with my pain because nothing else works, then so be it. Because I have, very severe neck pain, very severe cervical, thoracic, and lumbar pain. They've given me epidurals, they've given me all kinds of things, and I keep having, seizures and all kinds of stuff. And I go into neurogenic shock, and, every day I live in total fear and agony. And I've never been an addict. I've never felt anything from any pain medication. And just because somebody else screwed up, that's not my fault. 93% of people have taken drugs and never became addicts. Only 7% do. That's an amazing success job. and yet they will try to convince you that there's some kind of opioid epidemic. It's not. The epidemic is the fact that physicians are now too afraid to prescribe the medication the way they want to, so they're under-prescribing it, which is forcing people like myself to go buy illegal drugs out there somewhere else, which may or may not have fentanyl in it, and when it does, we accidentally overdose, and then we die and we become a statistic that they then use and twist and lie to say that, look, there's so many opioid users out there, we need to crack down more, when in reality you just need to have the doctors give us the fucking drugs that we've been successfully taking, like myself, for 10 years with no incidences, never failing a piss test, never missing an appointment, never doing anything. We were always in compliance. You screwed us. It's just like the war on drugs. We finally got somewhere with the medical marijuana, but it gives me seizures. I can't take it. So it's not for everybody. But that's the point, is that we should all be allowed to take whatever works for us. And that's what these rules are for, is so that everybody can do what works for them. And just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean you should stand in somebody else's way. It's the original definition of liberty. It's just because you don't agree with it, you need to be able to be willing to die to fight for your right for somebody else to do it their way. And I am going to die because it's a mercy killing. I cannot keep living this way. So hopefully my sacrifice makes this a better country. And this makes the news, it goes viral, it gains some traction. And you guys remember, opioids are safe. I've never been high off of them. The Suboxone treatments that they give made me 10 times more fucked up than any Lortab or Percocet or Roxycontin, which we call them blueberries, ever fucking did. And I've taken a lot of them. I've snorted, 60 milligrams of Roxycontin, and it did nothing for me. And yet I took 1/8 of a fucking Suboxone strip, and I fucking was literally seeing the whole walls were going sideways. And most doctors out there think that they don't do anything. It doesn't do anything for you. That it's a completely safe thing because it has naloxone in it. They're idiots. They don't take their own medication. Every doctor should be forced to take the medication they prescribe. There's a reason why those strips sell for $20 on the street. And if you don't know, now you know. Anyways, these are my final and last words. Evolve beyond mythology. Peace, love, and chicken grease, as we like to say. Take your hands apart from the worthless act of prayer and move them and place them on the problem and solve it, because wishing to get something done will never get it done. We are all gods. We make things happen. You are not powerless. Do something about it. This is what I'm doing today. What are you going to do tomorrow? Good luck. You're going to need it.